This is the final part to the transitioning of the kingdom from Saul to David. We got a lot to cover. I want to get into it. Let's start right where we left off in 1 Samuel 27. I do want to make it to 2 Samuel this week, and 1 Samuel ends with the death of Saul, so spoiler there. Alright, 1 Samuel 27, starting with verse 1. And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. Even though we read last week where Saul said, I'm not going to do you any harm anymore, David. But, we've been down that path before. And David said, I got to get out of here. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines. Alright, so keep that in mind. The Philistines play a major role in what we're going into this week. Alright, if anyone's unfamiliar with the land of the Philistines, we like the maps. In Bible History 101, we like the maps. Alright, we got the map. This is all of Philistia right here. The Gaza coast is what you call it today. In ancient times, that was the Philistines' land. That's where the Sudanese used to be. Alright, let's go back. And Saul shall despair of me to seek me any more in any coast of Israel, so shall I escape out of his hand. Verse 2. And David arose, and he passed over with the 600 men that were with him unto Achish, the son of Maoch, king of Gath. And here we see Gath on here. Gath comes up a lot. It's right here. Alright. It's that city right there in that valley between Judah and the Gaza coast. Alright. Let's go back. And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife. Alright. These are both northern kingdom areas. Zoom in a little bit here. Carmel, you see where Carmel is? Up here in the territory of Manasseh. Jezreel is in Issachar, a border city between Issachar and Manasseh. Alright, back at it. And it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him, right? Because doing that would start war with the Philistines, right? They're constantly going at it anyway, but Saul didn't want to escalate that conflict. And David said unto Achish, if I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee? Alright, so David said, let me get my own land, let me get my own city for us to hide out in. I just got to check one thing real quick. Please bear with me. Okay, it seems the sound is working. All praise to the Most High for that. Alright, we can continue. Verse 6. Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day. Wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. Right, so it wasn't just a short time thing. It was a gift from the Philistines to David. Alright, and Ziklag, let's see if we can find that on here. Yes. Down here. Bordering on Simeon territory. Alright. Verse 7. And the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. Alright, so what we're about to read tonight goes over a full year and 4 months. Alright, what is it? 16 months. Alright. And David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites and the Gezrites and the Amalekites. For those nations were of old, the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. So that lets us know what that's talking about. It's all areas down here, south of that line that I just drew. Alright. Let's look at a more zoomed out version. We got the maps right here. Let's go into this map. It's a little bit more zoomed out. Yeah, so that would be on into As you can see right here, this is the territory of southern Judah and southern Philistia. And down here, in this general vicinity, is where you're going to find the Amalekites, Geshurites, Gezerites, even as you go towards this way, towards Egypt. All right? All right. Let's get back to it. Verse 9. And David smote the land and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep and the oxen and the asses and the camels and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. And Achish said, Whither have ye made a road today? And David said, Against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Kenites. Right, so the Kenites were joined together with Judah. The Jerahmeelites are a division of Judah, a family of Judah. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines. And Achish believed David, saying, He hath made his people Israel utterly to abhor him. Therefore he shall be my servant forever. Right, so David did one thing, but he told the Philistines, Hey, I've been fighting against the Israelites, when David would never turn against his own people. All right. First Samuel 28. Start with verse 1. And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare, to fight with Israel. And Achish said to David, Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. And David said to Achish, Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of my head forever. Right? So David is gaining favor with Achish, right? This Philistine. Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land, right? So like the necromancers, the people who have familiar spirits, the mediums, all right? And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. All right? So, Saul is seeking answers from the Lord is not hearing him. All right? So let's see what Saul does. Verse 7. Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. Right? So, we can get rid of that for now. We might go back to it. But Endor, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Endor is the same one that what's that guy? Tolkien used in Lord of the Rings. That's what he named his whole world, was Endor, right? Well, he got that from the scriptures. That was a city in in Issachar, as you can see right here. Endor. And Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment. And he went, and 2 men with him. And they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee. Verse 9. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die? She's like, No, I'm not a medium. I'm not a spirit guide. Right? Saul got rid of all those. Why are you trying to kill me? And entrapment, right? Verse 10. And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. So that's crazy to say. That's crazy to say that I swear to God that you will not be punished for this sin that God said not to do. Right? That's crazy. Anyway. Verse 11. Then said the woman, Whom shall I bring up unto thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. Right? So she, started looking in the spirit world. She saw Samuel, and she also saw that Saul was in the disguise. All right. Verse 13. And the king said unto her, Be not afraid, for what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. Right. So she said, Yeah, I seen Samuel. Verse 14. And he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped his face to the ground and bowed himself. Right. So, what you like wearing and what you like doing transfers to your spirit. Right. It's not just a physical appearance. Right. Because Samuel liked wearing his mantle, and that was a part of his spirit. All right. Mantle being like a cape with a hood. Verse 15. And Samuel said to Saul, Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? Right. So he's saying, like, why have you woken me up? Essentially. And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God is departed from me, and answereth me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do. Then said Samuel, Wherefore then dost thou ask of me, saying the Lord is departed from thee, and has become thine enemy? All right, so Samuel's like, what do you think I can do about it? I'm a servant of the Lord. Why do you think I'm going to say anything different than the Lord has told you, which is nothing? All right. And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me. For the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thy hand, and given it to thy neighbor, even unto David. Right? So Samuel's like, look, it's too late for you. Because thou obeyedest not the voice of the Lord, nor executed his fierce wrath upon Amalek, therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Right? So Samuel said, tomorrow y'all gonna die. All right? You and your sons with you. All right? But notice he didn't say, oh, well, I'm in heaven, but y'all going to hell. No, all the dead go to the same place. This Christian mythology that y'all got these days is not biblical. All right? Anyway, verse 20. Then Saul fell straightway all along on the earth, and was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel. And there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day, nor all the night. And the woman came unto Saul, and saw that he was sore troubled, and said unto him, Behold, thy handmaid hath obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in my hand, and have hearkened unto thy words which thou spakest unto me. Verse 22. Now therefore I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thy handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before thee, and eat, that thou mayest have strength when thou goest on thy way. Right? So she can tell that he's visibly shaken. Right? And she's like, look, let me make you some food and send you on your way. All right, verse 23. But he refused and said, I will not eat. But his servants together with the woman compelled him, and he hearkened unto their voice. So he arose from the earth and sat upon the bed. And the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she hasted and killed it, and took flour and kneaded it, and did bake unleavened bread thereof. And she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat. Then they arose up and went away that night. All right. So now, as the prophecy from the mouth of this woman, but really from Samuel of the Lord, is that Saul is going to die when he comes against the Philistines. Right? He's going to die in a war with the Philistines. Chapter 29, verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered together all their armies to Aphek, and the Israelites pitched by a fountain which is in Jezreel. I don't know if Aphek's going to be on here, but it did say Israel pitched in Jezreel. As we can see that right there, that's as we discussed earlier, it's a border city between Issachar and Manasseh, and I do see Aphek now down here by the Yarkon River. Aphek down there in Ephraim. All right. Aphek, border city between Manasseh and Ephraim. Jezreel, a border city between Issachar and Manasseh. All right. So let's get back. Verse 2. And the lords of the Philistines passed on by hundreds and by thousands, but David and his men passed on in the rear ward with Achish. Right. So that was all the way in the back of the troops. Then said the princes of the Philistines, what do these Hebrews here? And Achish said unto the princes of the Philistines, is not this David, the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, which hath been with me these days, or these years, and I have found no fault in him since he fell unto me this day? Right? So Achish is trying to explain, look, Saul is after him, so he fled to me. So he's with us. Right? Verse 4. And the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him. And the prince of the Philistines said unto him, make this fellow return, that he may go again to his place which thou hast appointed him, and let him not go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he be an adversary to us. For wherewith should he reconcile himself unto his master? Should it not be with the heads of these men? So these other Philistines are telling Achish, look, David's going to turn on you in this war, so send him back to where you got him stand, so he doesn't have that opportunity. Verse 5. Is not this David, of whom they sang one to another in dances, saying, Saul slew his thousands and David his 10,000s? Right? So they're like, David's done killed a whole lot of us, so don't put him on the battlefield with us, send him back. Verse 6. Then Achish called David and said to him, surely as the Lord liveth, thou hast been upright, and thy going out and thy coming in with me in the host is good in my sight. For I have not found evil in thee since the day of thy coming unto me this day. Nevertheless, the Lord's favor thee not. Right? So he's like, well, I know you've been good to me, but these other Philistines don't like you. Wherefore now return and go in peace, that thou displease not the lords of the Philistines. And David said to Achish, but what have I done? And what hast thou found in thy servant so long as I have been with thee unto this day, that I may not go fight against the enemies of my lord the king? And Achish answered and said to David, I know that thou art good in my sight, as an angel of God. Notwithstanding, the princes of the Philistines have said, he shall not go up with us to battle. Wherefore now rise up early in the morning with thy master's servants that are come with thee, and as soon as ye be up early in the morning and have light, depart. So David and his men rose up early to depart in the morning, to return into the land of the Philistines, and the Philistines went up to Jezreel. Right? So obviously this thing is of the Lord, because the Lord did not want David fighting against his own people. So he sent him back to the land of the Philistines, to Ziklag. That's where they had placed him and his men was in Ziklag. All right. 1 Samuel 30. I'm sorry, verse 1. And it came to pass, when David and his men were come to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had invaded the south, and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with fire. And and had taken the women captives that were therein. They slew not any, either great or small, but carried them away and went on their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captives. Then David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept until they had no more power to weep. All right, so they're crying because all their wives and children had been taken captive. Right? So it said they cried until they couldn't cry no more. All right. Verse 5. And David's two wives were taken captives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. Right? So these people are starting to, his own men are starting to turn on him. That's how upset that they are. Right? They're starting to turn on David and said, look, we need to stone him. We need to kill him, because he's the one that brought us here in the first place. Right? We wouldn't be in this mess if it wasn't for David. Right? But David's trying to stay in the spirit. Verse 7. And David said to Abiathar the priest, Ahimelech's son, I pray thee, bring me hither the ephod. And Abiathar brought thither the ephod to David. And David inquired at the Lord, saying, shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, pursue. For thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. Right? So as you can see here, David is inquiring of the Lord, and the Lord is answering him, whereas the Lord had no answers for Saul. Right? He was not dealing with him anymore. But the Lord told him, said, hey, look, go and take back everything. All right. Verse 9. So David went, he and the 600 men that were with him, and came to the brook Besor, where those that were left behind stayed. All right. I don't think we're going to see the brook Besor on the map, because a brook is already a very small waterway anyway. Well, we see North Besor right over here, and letting out around Gaza. As you can see, it goes into these different waterways. So, not sure which one, but probably the one closest to Ziklag, if I had to guess. Where are we at? Okay, came to the brook Besor. Verse 10. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 abode behind, which were so faint that they could not go over the brook Besor. Right. So you had these men who have been traveling this whole time, right? Because they were up in Aphek. They told to travel back down to Ziklag, and now they get there, and everybody's been, taken captive. Verse 11. And they found an Egyptian in the field, and brought him to David, and gave him bread, and he did eat, and they made him drink water. And they gave him a piece of cake of figs, and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit came again to him. For he had eaten no bread, nor drunk any water, 3 days and 3 nights, right? He was refreshed. And David said to him, to whom belongest thou? And whence art thou? And he said, I am a young man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite. And my master left me, because 3 days agone I fell sick. Right, so he just left him. But anyway, the Amalekites, so-called Jewish people today, Amalekites, they stem from the same people as regular white people, but they've always wanted to be separate and do their own thing. And they were always against the children of Israel since our Exodus. They were the first ones to come against us in battle. All right, so the Lord has always had striving against the Amalekites. All right. Verse 14. We made an invasion upon the south of the Cherethites. Right, Cherethites would be a certain sect of Philistines that were good and mighty men at war. And upon the coast which belongeth to Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. And David said to him, can thou bring me down to this company? And he said, swear to me by God that thou wilt neither kill me nor deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will bring thee down to this company. Right, so he said, don't take me back. The dude left me to die whenever I got sick. Don't take me back to him, and don't kill me. And I'll show you where they're at. Verse 16. And when he had brought him down, behold, they were spread abroad upon all the earth, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil that they had taken out of the land of the Philistines, and out of the land of Judah. And David smote them from the twilight even until the evening of the next day, right? So that's like a full 24 hours. Almost a full 24 hours. And there escaped not a man of them, save 400 young men which rode upon camels and fled. And David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away. And David rescued his 2 wives. And there was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, neither spoiled nor anything that they had taken to them. David recovered all. And David took all the flocks and the herds which they drave before those other cattle, and said, this is David's spoil. Right? So not only did he get back everything that they lost, he got some of their stuff too. Verse 21. And David came to the 200 men, which were so faint that they could not follow David, whom they had made also to abide at the brook Besor, and they went forth to meet David, and to meet the people that were with him. And when David came near to the people, he saluted them. Then answered all the wicked men and men of Belial, of those that went with David, and said, because they went not with us, we will not give them aught of the spoil that we have recovered, save to every man his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart. Right? So they're like, they didn't go with us, so they ain't getting nothing. Right? Notice what the scriptures call them. They call them wicked men and men of the devil. That's what Belial means. All right. Verse 23. Then said David, ye shall not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord hath given us, who hath preserved us and delivered the company that came against us into our hand. Right? So David's sitting here saying, look, it's praise to the Most High. It's not even about us. Verse 24. For who will hearken unto you in this matter? But as his part is that goeth down to the battle, so shall his part be that tarrieth by the stuff. They shall part alike. Right? So he's like, both groups, both sects are going to receive the spoil. Right? Everybody gets equal parts. And it was so from that day forward that he made it a statute and an ordinance for Israel unto this day. Right? That you remain, if you if you stay back, you receive the same portion as the people who go, right? Because when you're talking about war, you have different people at different posts, and if you were to split it up based on importance of your post, then what are you doing, right? It's going to get real muddy real fast. So all praise to the Most High for that ordinance, for that statute. And when David came to Ziklag, he spent of the spoil unto the elders of Judah. He sent of the spoil unto the elders of Judah, even to his friends, saying, Behold, a present for you of the spoil of the enemies of the Lord, to them which were in Bethel, and to them which were in South Ramoth, and to them which were in Jatir, and to them which were in Aroer, and to them which were in Siphmoth, and to them which were in Eshtemoa, and to them which were in Rakal, and to them which were in the cities of the Jerahmeelites, and to them which were in the cities of the Kenites, and to them which were in Hormah, and to them which were in Chorashan, and to them which were in Athak, and to them which were in Hebron, and to all the places where David himself and his men were wont to hunt. Right, so everywhere that he liked going to, any place, any city that he liked staying in, he sent gifts all over. Right. It said even in Aroer, right? Aroer is beyond Jordan. Let's see if I can find Aroer real quick. Yes, see, Aroer is over here in Reuben, so that's all the way. That's not even in Judah anymore. So he sent to more than just Judah, right? Mostly Judah, because you see like Jatir, Eshtemoa, Hebron, right here, but also Hormah, which is technically Simeon, but it's probably some Judites in there as well. But he sent it all over. Sent gifts all over. All right. Next chapter. All right. 1 Samuel 31. Starting with verse 1. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. Right? So while David is stuck in this situation with the Amalekites, the Philistines and the Israelites are at war. All right, it's still the same thing going on, and the Lord had sent David back to recover what the Amalekites had stolen from him. Right, as I mentioned earlier, it was of the Lord that David was not in this battle between the Israelites and the Philistines. All right. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons, and the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua, Saul's sons. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. Then said Saul unto his armor bearer, Draw thy sword, and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through, and abuse me. But his armor bearer would not, for he was so afraid. Therefore Saul took a sword and fell upon it. All right. So here we see in this battle, the Philistines, that's basically their primary objective here, is to kill Saul and his sons. All right. And they did it. Technically they didn't do it, but they achieved that goal. Verse 5, and when his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise upon his sword and died with him. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor bearer, and all his men that same day together. Verse 7, and when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley, and they that were on the other side of Jordan, saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. All right. So the Philistines gained so much more land, right? They went up the coast, right? Normally, this would be their borders, and they would border alongside Judah and Dan here. But as we saw with David's conversation with the lords of the Philistines and with Achish, they had progressed all the way up to Aphek right here, right? And so in this battle, we saw that Israel was encamped right here in Jezreel. And so with this battle, they were meeting down here. Like basically this whole general vicinity, right? And so here you have the Philistines pushing upwards through, I don't know how far they took it, but they progressed up that Mediterranean coast. Let's get rid of all this. Damn it. All right. Let's see. Where did we get to? Verse 8. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. Now, I don't think Mount Gilboa is on here, at least not highlighted. Again, if I had to guess, it would be, there's Mount Gerizim, there's Mount Ebal. Yeah, I don't see Mount Gilboa on here. There's Tabor. Yeah, not saying Mount Gilboa. If I had to guess, it's going to be right up in here. All right, let's go back. And they cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent into the land of the Philistines round about to publish it in the house of their idols and among the people. And they put his armor in the house of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. Right, so they took great honor, took great glory in killing the Israelite king. Right, because Saul had made war with the Philistines all his reign. Right, so they said, finally, we got him. We're going to put him in the house of our gods. Verse 11. And when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard of what the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan and came to Jabesh and burnt them there. And they took their bones and buried them under a tree at Jabesh and fasted 7 days. Right, so here come the big guns. Right, you got the Gadites coming from Jabesh Gilead. All right, Jabesh Gilead being right here, as you can see. And in Gadite territory, they said, no, they ain't gonna do our king like that. They went down there, got his body back, got his son's body back, and give him a proper burial. All right. Where are we at? All right. I believe that's the end of 1 Samuel. But I do want to read in 2 Samuel, the first chapter, a little bit, because this is really the a good way to wrap it up. This transition period from Saul to David. All right. Starting with verse 1 in 2 Samuel, the first chapter. Now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites. Excuse me. And David had abode 2 days in Ziklag. It came even to pass on the 3rd day that, behold, a man came out of the camp of Saul with his clothes rent and earth upon his head. And so it was, when he came to David, that he fell to the earth and did obeisance. And David said to him, from whence comest thou? And he said, out of the camp of Israel am I escaped. Verse 4. And David said to him, how went the matter? I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, that the people are fled from the battle, and many of the people also are fallen and dead, and Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also. Verse 5. And David said unto the young man that told him, how knowest thou that Saul and Jonathan's son be dead? Right, so David's like, what, did you hear about this? Is it a rumor? Is there any chance that they might still be alive? That's what he's really thinking here. That's what he's trying to gather, the intel, 6. Verse 6. And the young man that told him said, As I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and the horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me, and called unto me, and answered, Here am I. And he said unto me, Who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. Right? So you had this whole situation that we read about last chapter, where you had Saul, who asked his armor bearer to kill him. He said, Don't let these Philistines torture me, kill me now. And his armor bearer was like, No, I can't do it. And he killed himself, right? And then Saul said, Well, hey, I'll jump on my sword too, right? I'll kill myself. I'd rather kill myself than have the Philistines torture me and kill me, all right? But as you may know, not every suicide attempt ends the life, at least not immediately, right? And of course, falling on your sword, that's not going to be a quick death. That's going to be a slow and painful death in most cases. All right. So this young man was seeing all this happen. This Amalekite man was seeing all this happen. He said unto me again, Stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me. For anguish has come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. Right? So that suicide attempt that Saul did not work. So I stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head and the bracelet that was on his arm, and have brought them hither unto my Lord. Right? So this Amalekite man killed Saul, and then brought his bracelet and his crown. All right. Verse 11. Then David took hold on his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until even for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. Right? So this is very upsetting to David, because David loved Jonathan and he loved Saul. Verse 13. And David said unto the young man that told him, Whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, an Amalekite. Verse 14. And David said unto him, How wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thy hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? Right? Because if you recall last chapter, the armor bearer he was very afraid. Verse 15. And David called one of the young men and said, Go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. And David said unto him, Thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth had testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. Right? So then they ended up killing that Amalekite man for killing Saul. Right? David was very upset. He loved Saul, so that he was very sad to not only see Saul die and Saul's son Jonathan die, but that the Lord's anointed had died. That really upset David.